Hmm. My name is Hythloday. My name is Hythloday. My British accent isn't as good as it used to be. Okay. No, that's not me, Hythloday. Let's just listen to this. I'm going to re-listen to this. I don't think I gave it my full attention when I first heard it. I was traveling. So let's go. I Piero, myself, know what I'm talking about. Willpower. And as I've mentioned, it's not originally my idea. It's sort of a point that Nietzsche makes about nothing's absolutely free. There's no free will. There's not unfree will. And the real issue, as far as the question that you can look into to get some sort of to make an advance in this area, is to ask about relative willpower. Willpower. Okay. Well, really, that's an interesting question, but it's hardly the primary question. The primary question for us as individual subjective, agents is: do we sometimes have more or less willpower, given a similar situation, for example, that might recur more than once, where the difference seems to be your engagement and willpower in the situation? To get out and do something or whatever it might, and or to make a mistake. Not that willpower is automatically a good thing. Maybe you used your will in a mistaken way, but it was either strong versus weak in your own situation. Now, do different people have different strengths of will? It would seem so, roughly speaking, but it would appear very difficult to judge which was strong for various reasons that maybe we'll get into. Well, I mean, it could be that they were kidnapped and starved against their will. It could be that the person that managed to stay on a diet and lose weight um, was being pressured by somebody. It was in reaction to someone else, and really, relative to that event, it was a weak will. So I don't really know. I don't know of any direct correlation between will and weight. It's pretty much it. Yes, yes. The strength of your will can be built by the more you exercise your will, the more you practice, making decisions, is thinking things over and not just taking them at random or happenstance. The stronger your will become. Yeah, that's sort of the real point here. No, it's not like a crystal energy source from Atlantis. It's more like, that's not how energy works. It's more like muscles. right? Like a muscle can move a body. The more you do that, it's able to tune itself to be ready to do that more and to be more fit. And it happens when that situation occurs that things get more efficient as well. But you have to utilize it or it'll atrophy. And if you don't utilize your will, which, you know, sometimes there's people in a hierarchy that maybe don't want you to exercise your will, you can let it atrophy. So, and that would be a weak will, the atrophied will. Okay, I don't know where you're going. I forget. This is maybe a part I missed, but that there's willpower and it's overcome. You know, that doesn't matter. I mean, the power in a vehicle is overcome by a hurricane that throws the vehicle off the road, but it doesn't mean there wasn't power there, right? Are we discussing if it's a subtle power, what its relationship is to gravity or electromagnetism? I mean, because I'm prepared to have that. I'm prepared to look at it entirely materialistically and look at what is the power required to do information processing. It's actually very, very low, obviously. But we aren't really entering into that conversation yet. I would like to, but do continue. Let me stop you right here because it's not about criticizing people's physical limitations or preconceived mental ideas or anything like that. It really is like power. You know, you can use your willpower. If you like food, you can use your willpower to go find food and then you eat it. By what assumption is it that you should have to use your willpower to not eat so much? Because I feel bad. Well, when the human brain or probably mammal brain feels bad, that doesn't necessarily mean it wants to go do something about it. It feels bad because it would rather do something else, and so that's what it really does. And then it has this complex emotional explanation to itself that evaluates to, I have low esteem, I feel bad about myself. But that's all bullshit. The fact is, they are using their will to get up and go do whatever they do. You know, I don't use my will to get food. It is not of interest to me. I use my will to pursue other things that are of interest to me, and I actually have to remember to eat and remember, oh, you should don't go a day and a half without eating. That's not a good idea, right? So there is no assumption that, you know, just because somebody thinks they want to do something, or we can even have an example where we assume they want to do something, that they really want to do it. Now, if they tell you, but I do really want to do it, well, they lack the will to do that particular thing, but they have a will to do some other thing. And what's going on inside them is there's two wills and one is stronger. All right. Inside them, there's two wills, one to do the thing of eating in your example, and one to diet and abstain, right? Now, I've never found that if you have two wills, by the way, when we're talking about making your will stronger, that when you have two wills that are antipodal like that, and you have the stronger one of, oh, I'm doing this thing that I want to stop, I've never found that the way to beat that is to have something pulling in the opposite direction, a necessarily smaller will that you're trying to build. Can be, I could see it working. Maybe there's some examples that I, in my own case, but mostly no. I would go off at an angle. If you have a strong will that you don't want pulling you in a direction that you don't want, choose something else where it's not exactly opposite. It's not wanting to inhibit eating. It's something else, like bicycle riding. Oh, well, I can't eat too many snacks when I'm on a bicycle, right? You might find that you can actually keep your eating and exercise, and it'll all work out. So just a little tangent there. Okay, so you understand what I'm saying is on both sides of the balance is will. There's one will to get food, which is evolutionary and ancient. And there's another will. Is this fucking thing even audible? Better be. Okay, good. So there's two wills inside this brain pushing down. One to go ahead and eat. You know, maybe there's depression or something, but I wouldn't assume that. It's an evolutionarily strong need to want to eat, and we have this availability of what evolutionarily is a high desirability foods. And on the other side, there's, you know, other balances of, oh, I eat too much for it to be healthy, or what people think, or whatever. They're both pushing down. Now, which one wins? You're thinking of willpower as the arbiter between the wills. Now, that's an interesting thing. We do have willpower that arbitrates between wills, right? And you want to talk about how it's got to be deterministic all the way down. Well, no, it's got to be semi-deterministic until it gets to be a close call, and then there would be indeterminism. That's beside the point, though. I just want to study these wills on both sides of the balance, right, and how they interact. And then we'll go step by step to the next step. We want to assume through an inductive argument or presume that it is a particular way, because even if it is that way, there's a lot of details left out in that description of it as being ultimately determined. I am willing to discover that will is ultimately determined. I'm not willing to say that it's not a phenomena at all. It is a phenomena. And so this is a way to look into how it works. See, here's the thing where I'm going to rely on the fact that we all have these brains and they work by feelings. Now, all we know about willing, feeling like we're doing something on purpose, is that we feel a certain way, right? Just like when we know we're attracted to somebody, it seems ridiculous to say you wouldn't know that. Because we feel attracted to them. We know when we're hungry because we feel hungry. Now, do the hunger is supposed to mean we need food, but maybe we don't need food. Maybe something else can trigger that. We know other things can trigger these feelings, but we also know that when we feel them, that, you know, that is our state, right? So when we're willing something, we recognize this feeling of, it is sort of a feeling of, that it's on purpose. You know, after a period of time, it can feel like accomplishment. I'm sure there's a lot of words that invoke parts of the framing of this emotion or cluster of emotions of feeling like we have done something intentionally. You know, we'll tend to think we have a memory of it, though those memories can be spotty too. It'll you know, that it happened will be pretty strong memory. And there's certain characteristics, properties that accompany the feeling that you can recognize it by. And there is a feeling itself of doing something on purpose, of it being willful, and of it sometimes taking an extra effort of will. And it does seem to me like, you know, we have energy and we can use it here and there and not more than we have, though. So that's all we know. We don't know that we really made a decision, or, you know, it's just like the color red or hunger. It signifies something, but what it signifies is not really the thing that it feels like, right? So it could be that we feel like we're making decisions, but you know, really they're predetermined. I understand that argument. So that doesn't mean that we can pretend we don't feel that way. And I think it is very, very important for us to pay attention to this feeling of not being a robot, the feeling of making decisions. And willpower is insignificant, like ridiculously insignificant compared to the energy of an earthquake or tree falling over, or even of the muscles moving, most of which are somewhat robotic, or you know, they don't seem to require conscious thought. For example, they seem to be the result of willing. And I think this is likely when we look at how low power we can make electronics and computers, and how efficient brain tissue is, neurological tissue. It's not something that takes a lot of absolute energy. And so I would think that, yeah, it's a pretty low power phenomena, but it can be arbitrarily amplified, right? So if the willpower is at level, you know, 1 in the human brain, well, the body is at a level 10 because of all this amplification of very subtle neural signals into those of the body. And then that body is running the, you know, controls of a backhoe. And so there it's 100 times amplified, and so on and so forth, you know, that we can arrange for this cascading amplification of will. But that just as an animal in the wild against the, you know, the rules of nature, no, it's subtle. We don't overpower things. No animal does. We weave in and out of the powers that be. Okay, that's interesting, because I also want to learn German, and I've listened to some tapes and stuff, and I still think maybe I should do some of these more modern language things, because there's a lot of things in German I would like to read. I took Spanish in college, and didn't do that great. I got a C, my only C, and yeah, everybody else already knew Spanish. That was fucking rigged. maybe you're racist. No, I'm just kidding. What musical instrument would you learn? Guitar is a fun one just because it's semi-portable and whatnot. You should do data science, but I'm biased, but you should this is a new kind of degree, at least in the US, that they're offering data science. It's a mix of mathematics and computer science and data analytic theory, statistics, in other words. Well, I think that's unfortunate because to have arrived, this dictum, know thyself, to know what interests you, because, well, let's back up a little step. My theory is that, and I've mentioned this to you before, but let's consider a background of utilitarianism that says you should do what makes you most satisfied. It's possibly a Gary-esque, theory that you're going to do what is most gratifying, right? I don't believe that. I never believe that trying to be happy all the time or satisfied or any of those synonyms quite does it. Sometimes you might have to be grumpy. You might need to cry. So how can you rectify that with a purpose for life? What is the purpose? Surely we can describe. And I think as a relativist, sure, it could be different for everybody. I think everybody gets to say, just like they get to say their pro-choice attitude about taking their own life or not. In principle, I think in principle, they get to say, what seems to be the emotion or pursuit that is consistent in life, making it worth living. And I think this is things that are interesting. Now, Socrates said, know thyself. Some people might like things that are exciting. Some people might like things that are beautiful. Some people might like things that are, you get the idea. So I find curiosity in things that are interesting. And as Socrates said, really the only thing he assertively said, he usually broke down other people's arguments and made them think twice. Wait, I don't know if I do know that. The one thing he asserted, though, was know thyself. Now, I think that it takes will to just know that list of priority. And then you use will to go through that list. And the fact that it takes willpower, right? Not will energy, but willpower, energy over time. Of course, things can't all be done, right? Of course, it's not a magic wand because it's like a little power station, battling, trying to refrigerate in a hot environment or whatever. It has real constraints on it. And so just making a list of interests itself is an example that willpower has taken place. Because why is your list different from mine? If it's just happening, why? Why is it different from people that have very similar situations to you? Well, because you have a different willpower. Fine, on some level, I even think it is deterministic. It's just that I believe it's not deterministic in the way we think. It's more like there's, you know, a 42-dimensional space, and we are merely 12-dimensional beings. So like a line through a swimming pool, you know, like an eel through a swimming pool, it can freely swim, even though everywhere in the swimming pool, it has this predetermined existence. The order that you go through it is still subject to the cross-section you experience. And furthermore, there's so many permutations of ways to go through it that it becomes very much equivalent to what we see as will power of going one way or another. And again, that would be fine. I find that deterministic and not quite as at all like how I feel when I'm willing. But I don't expect the way I feel to represent the reality any more than physical attraction or a sense of beauty, or hunger only happens when you really need nutrition. All of those things come with an illusion, which is why I say illusions exist. So the last word to you.